What's up, YouTube? I'm Abysmal Bloom, and I hope you guys are having a good day. I've been messing around with some combo decks, and this week I've been messing around with Drytron. And boy, oh boy, can we do some crazy combos. So, honestly, I'm just going to start off by showing what you can get from Alpha Zeta, and from there I just sort of want to show you the different lines you can go with it. So, overall, I'm going to be using Alpha and Zeta to get us access to a Beatrice plus a Herald of Perfection line, and I just sort of want to show how far that can go with this. So starting off, let's just go over the starting combo. We start off with Alpha Zeta. We pitch the Zeta for Alpha to get Ben 10. We then pitch Ben 10 to bring out Zeta and get the ritual spell. We will also search out our normal summon, which is Choju. From there, we go ahead and make our Xyz monster, Mubeta Fafnir, and this will send to the graveyard the Gamma. And this is great because this means with just this Gamma, we are able to make another Mubeta Fafnir later, which is very relevant in this combo. So now we're going to start off Ritual Summon back the Ben 10, and then we will actually Tribute Summon it for Choju so that we can trigger both of them at the same time. We will chain block, specifically Chainlink 1 Choju and then Chainlink 2 Ben 10, allowing us to get some safe searches. So Ben 10 is going to search out Ben 10, and then we're going to use Choju's to search out Herald of Perfection, plus its ritual spell. And what's crazy about this is Dawn of the Herald is able to tribute Ben 10 to summon out Herald of Perfection, and then we get both of these triggers happening at the same time, getting us the Ben 10 back to our hand and searching out another fairy, which is extremely important in this combo. So again, we chain block so that it's Chainlink 1 Ben 10, Chainlink 2 Dawn of the Herald, so that we get Ben 10 back to our hand and then we get the fairy. And the fairy we get is Idaten, mainly because every play from this point onwards is going to be after we've returned back our Drytron ritual spell from the graveyard back to our hand. So if we want to be able to abuse it from this point onwards, it's really off of Idaten. Continuing onwards, we will now go ahead and bring back the other Drytron names by tributing the Ben 10, which gives us a search for Ohime. We will then use Ohime's effect to search for Arahime and then send a card to our graveyard. This will be Ohime because then we have Arahime live. We bring back the ritual spell and then we go to our second copy of Mubeta Fafnir. We then go ahead and abuse Idaten's effect, basically by ritual summoning it by detaching a material. We are able to special summon Idaten, and this gets us our ritual spell back to our hand. From here, we're basically going to be going for some Xyz and Link plays. So from this point onwards, what we're ending on in this case is the Herald of Perfection, a used up Mubeta Fafnir, a 2 material Mubeta Fafnir, and then we can send a card off of the Beatrice to the graveyard to continue our plays. So what can this actually do for us? Well, I'm going to show the different lines you can go from here. So, starting off, let's go with the Apollousa lock. Okay, so starting off, in this situation, we're going to be going for Herald of Perfection plus Apollousa lock. And so let me show what that looks like here. We start off by sending the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to the graveyard. This allows us to banish it to search for both a Crystal Beast Ruby Carbuncle, which is a light fairy, as well as our field spell, Drytron Fafnir. We'll then play it to search out Drytron Nova, which will get us access to our last Drytron name. So now that we have Drytron Delta, let's actually just go ahead and link it off, and then use Delta's effect to send the Arahime to the graveyard. We draw a card off of this, and then we immediately go for a link for Apollousa. From here, we're going to bring back the Idaten by detaching a material. We'll then go ahead and use this to bring back the Ben 10 as well in this case. From here, we're going to link to the last Mubeta Fafnir with the Ben 10, and then finally we're going to use the Arahime and attach it to our Idaten. So what this is going to leave us with is during the end phase, we're going to return this back to our hand, giving us a total of 1, 2, 3 fairies for the Herald of Perfection in hand, plus the 4 negates from Apollousa. But that's not all. We also have Dynamondo, which is going to be able to act as a form of protection in case they out the Herald of Perfection. And if they don't out it, we can actually send the Dynamondo to the graveyard to return Ben 10 back to our hand for a 4th negate off of the Herald of Perfection. So this gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 negates off of Perfection, 4 negates from Apollousa. We also drew a card, and this is all from just 2 cards. Okay, so in this combo, we're actually going to be going for a Chaos Max lock with the Herald of Perfection active. And so to do that, in this case, we actually have to make sure that we summon a Mubeta Fafnir to the extra monster zone. And the reason why we do that is because we need to have space to summon back a ritual monster, because they cannot be ritual summoned into the extra monster zone. So let's just see how this goes. We'll start by detaching to send the Chaos Max to the graveyard. We will then use the Meteornus Drytron to bring back the Idaten by detaching material. This gets us back the ritual spell, and then we use it again to send the last Mubeta Fafnir, basically the 2 materials, to the graveyard to summon. We now have 2 bodies, so we'll go ahead and use that to make our Dynamondo, and then in this case we'll just go ahead and use Arahime and attach it to the Idaten, so that both get added to our hand during the end phase. Finally, if you are playing the package for the Rainbow Bridge during the draw phase, you not only trigger the effect of Dynamondo to bring back Chaos Max, you also send a Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to the graveyard through the Beatrice. And so this gets us the Chaos Max lock on the opponent's turn, and we get a 3rd fairy to our hand plus the Drytron Fafnir, giving us 3 Omni Negates for the Herald of Perfection and preventing our opponents from activating any monster effects, with us having 2 bodies with 2800 defense, making it impossible for them to really just break over that board. Alright folks, for this last combo, we are actually going to be going for a Gryphon lock with Herald of Perfection. So this means any monster effects they would attempt to activate on the board will not happen, and we also have the Perfection to prevent any card effects that the opponent would try to play beyond that. So in this case, we again detach to send the Rainbow Bridge to the graveyard, and we go ahead and get our last Drytron name on the board with Drytron Nova. From here, we'll go ahead and use the Delta to draw a card and bring back the body, and then we use the Mubeta Fafnir with no materials with the Delta to get a IP Masquerena. From here, we'll go ahead and bring back the Idaten, and from there, you can see that we have access to make a link for Knightmare Gryphon. And in this case, none of our links actually point to our opponent's side, meaning they are in fact locked out from using monster effects until they start linking their bodies. From here, we will just bring back we'll go ahead and just draw a card and discard a card for the Knightmare Gryphon, but then we'll bring back the Idaten one more time. We bring it back to the Knightmare Gryphon zone so that we get the link effect. And then we're actually going to make Dynamondo one more time by using the Link Kuriboh and Idaten. And so what this means is now we can actually send the Mubeta Fafnir to the graveyard to bring back Idaten, but we will not trigger the effect of Idaten this time. That is fine. From here, we will use Arahime, attach it, and add those cards back to our hand. We now have the 3 fairies in our hand, 4 negates. We have the Knightmare Gryphon, making it so that our opponent can't activate monster effects on the board unless they are linked. But what's even greater is because we have Dynamondo, it is protection for our Perfection, or it can be an extra fairy in our hand. So this comes to a total of 4 negates plus the Knightmare Gryphon. And along with that, we drew 2 in this case. So those are the different combo lines that I wanted to show that you can do with Alpha Zeta. Let's just quickly go over the deck profile. We got 3 alphas, 3 zetas, 2 Gammas, and 1 Delta. This is more or less standard. You could play a second Delta. However, I don't feel it's particularly necessary because we have different ways to search out the cards that we're missing. We play the 1 Choju and the 1 Diviner. They are both our normal summons, and they are highly dependent on what our opening hand is and if we're going first or second. Choju is really good at extending, going first, and Diviner gives us versatility going second to potentially just pop a card on the opponent's board with the Entis sent to the graveyard. We then play Cyber Angel Benton. This is probably the best card in the deck, allowing us to search multiple times other fairies. We have the Adatin to abuse the ritual spell once we return it back to our hand. We have the Natasha because this is how we destroy our opponents going second. And then we have the Ohime and Arahime to give us follow-up for our Herald of Perfection. We play the 1 Herald of Perfection, we play the 1 Chaos Max. These are great at locking out our opponents from doing anything on their turn. We then have the 2 Cyber Emergency, 2 Drytron Nova. Obviously you could play this at 3, however this card is also a once per turn, so I like to just have versatility by reducing these numbers back to 2 because they're both once per turn. We then play the we also play the 2 Drytron Fafnir. This card is able to search out your Nova or your Meteornus Drytron, but along with this, it's able to level modulate, which can be a form of interruption against something like Kashtira. We have the 1 Preparation of Rites as a follow-up in case you want to extend. It isn't particularly necessary, but when it comes up, it does so much for the deck. We then play the 2 Meteornus Drytron. Playing 1, it may not be safe in case they banish it, so playing a second one is really nice. And then the Dawn of the Herald for being able to abuse Herald of Perfection and Benten. From here, we have the unique Rainbow Bridge package in our deck. We don't want to ever see this in our hand, so we play the 1 of each of them, and if we do see them in our hand, it sort of is a brick. However, in the case that we don't see it, this provides so much more extension for our Beatrice lineup with the Herald of Perfection. We then play our hand traps, which include 3 Droll, 2 Ash, an Artifact Lancia or Herald of Orange Light, which can be searched, and the Call by the Grave. For our extra deck, we have the Entis, the Herald of Arclight. These are sent to the graveyard off of Diviner, and they are great because Herald can search a card and Entis can pop a card. We have the Zeus, the Downerd, the Mubeta Fafnirs, and the Beatrice. Beatrice is amazingly important for extension. We have the Fucho, which allows us to survive going second or even going first in the case they hand trap us, and potentially allows us to get to Zeus if need be. We have the Knightmare Gryphon for a Link 4 lock. We have the Apollousa for for a monster negates. We have the Dynamondo for our going first lineup to basically abuse the Chaos Max. Going second, it isn't really as relevant. We have the IP Masquerena to sort of provide protection for our Knightmare Gryphon, as also help clear our board a little bit so that we can bring back the Adatin multiple times. We then play the 1 Link Karibo. This card is amazing and important for the deck. Not only is it able to send any of our Drytron level 1s to the graveyard, it's able to protect us from monster damage. The best part about Link Karibo is it's a quick effect, so we can actually just have something like an alpha on the field in defense position, and when they attempt to go for an attack, we can immediately tribute it to bring the Link Karibo back and sort of provide a surprise follow-up. We also have the Relinquished Anima for the players who never really play around it, and it's again a level 1, so might as well. For our side decks, we are playing Herald of Green Light, Herald of Purple Light. Just really depends on what the matchup is. You want to have the Green Light if you're playing against something that really focuses on playing spells. An example of this would be something like Runic. We have the Herald of Purple Light to deal with traps, and this is effective against something like Trap Tricks or Labyrinth. We have the Kurikaras, which are our level 1 replacement for something like Nibiru. Kurikara is amazing as it can potentially OTK and kill the opponent. We have the Effect Veilers to be similar to our Imperms. We play the triple tactic package, so there's Thrust and the Tactics. We have both the Meteornus Draconoid as well as the Quadrantids. Cannot say its name properly, but that's the best way we're going to get. Draconoid is if we are going second. This is a great card to potentially just break boards and OTK. And then Quadrantids is great against back row heavy decks. Lastly, we have the 2 Book of Eclipse, and that is more or less what the deck is. As for some cards you could consider, a really good card for this deck would be something like Where Art Thou. Once you have a level 1 body on board, you could use Where Art Thou to not only search for another Drytron name, but you could also use it to search for some of your hand traps that are really strong, such as the Drolan Lockbird, the Kurikara, or even the Effect Veiler. One final card that I haven't put in here is in fact DD Crow, which could also be searched and is very effective at just banishing cards from the graveyard. It could be very useful if you're worried about facing against graveyard heavy decks. Finally, I just want to point out that the Mikanko package as well as the Crystal Beast package can be bricky. If you open the wrong card in your opening hand, it can be actually very difficult to do the combos that were shown here. That being said, they do provide an extra level of power to that end board that you normally try to make, and so for that reason could still be considered for the deck. If you liked what you saw, I highly recommend you give a like, subscribe. It helps the channel grow. And yeah, if you guys want to just chat about any ideas, please feel free to do so, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Alright, well that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!